So, good evening and welcome. I'm Ritu Sethi, Director of the League of Artisans, a not-for-profit established in 2022 with the aim of supporting artisanal skills and knowledge as a vital response to global challenges and trusting in their transformational power to create alternative futures for people and planet. So, on behalf of my co directors, Saul Maranucci and Carrie Sommers, and our Artisan Advisory Board, I welcome you all to this online webinar. As our organization is headquartered in Leek, our commitment is to bring to light its incredible textile heritage with the creation of the first annual Leek Textile Week to be held in September. As a lead up to the week, this webinar is the second in the series of 6 that honors our commitment. Under the umbrella title of Textiles Transformed From Leek to Liberty via India, these webinars weave the threads of the past into the present, spinning new connections with Indian artisans whose knowledge helped transform the local industry. As there are so many different aspects to Leek's textile history that are waiting to be explored, today we will be examining just a part of its fascinating history and its contemporary connects. We will find out more about Sir Thomas Wardle's experiments with natural dyes, the important role played by Indian artisans through their knowledge of plant dyes, as well as the continuing tradition of Indian block printing and its global links today. But before I introduce our eminent panelists, just a bit of housekeeping and some information. But first, thank you for responding to the online poll that was posted at the start of the webinar. While we would have loved to have seen you and heard your voices as attendees, for reasons of technology, your audio is centrally muted and your video turned off. But please do post your questions to the panelists on the Q&A link below. And if you wish, do specify who you are addressing the question to, if you would like a specific speaker to respond. Also, do send in your comments and suggestions in the chat box. At the end of the webinar, we would be grateful if you could again respond to 2 questions that are posed for your suggestions for our future talks. We are recording this webinar as we plan to post it on our YouTube channel for those unable to attend today. For more details, do check out the League of Artisans website, our Instagram page, and other links that we have posted on the chat box. Our support for the Leek Textile Week has come from public funding by the National Lottery through the Arts Council England, as well as funding and support for outside arts. And we are delighted to announce our partnership with Neela House, Lady Bamford Foundation for our talks and future events at Leek Week. And now, on to the main event. I will be introducing each speaker before their presentation, and I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Rajarshi Sengupta. Dr. Sengupta is a textile practitioner and an art historian, presently teaching at the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Indian Institute of Technology in Kanpur, India. Having completed his PhD in art history from the University of British Columbia, Vancouver, he received the IARTS Textiles of India grant from the Royal Ontario Museum and the Indo-Canadian Shastri Institute travel grant. He has contributed to the publication Cloth That Changed the World, The Art and Fashion of Indian Chintz, edited by Dr. Sarafi, besides his other prolific writings. He is currently co-editing a book on Deccani material culture. While as a textile practitioner, his works have been widely exhibited in galleries across India. Rajarshi, over to you.
Thank you very much. Am I audible? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think as we already have started this discussion on textile, the block printed textile, past and present, I must clarify at the beginning that my presentation will probably touch upon more on the relationship between past and present and not so much on the block printed textile because the richness of block printed textile will come in the later part of this, this evening. So first of all, thank you very much, League of Artisans and Craft Revival Trust, Ritu, Sol, and everyone for making this happen, providing us with this platform for sharing our thoughts, sharing our work at the same time, having this wonderful space for discussion. And so continuing on that, I'd first like to share my screen and then start the presentation. So this evening or morning or afternoon, wherever you are. So my presentation is titled as Wardle and the Red Dyes, the Plurality of Red Dyes in India. So again, just a reminder that my presentation is not going to be primarily about Thomas Wardle, but the plurality of red dyes in India, and then how Wardle's documentation in the 1860s that stays as a crucial point of departure for all of us to do the further research and practice on the existence of red dyes in the historical times, as well as how we can take these discussions further today in India. So when we talk about the red dyes, we see from the historical time period that the brilliant red dyes have always been an integral part of Indian textiles, and especially the dyed, painted, and printed textiles, be there from the Coromandel region, from Deccan, or from the Gujarat region, or Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, many different parts of India. Now, what we find that since the early modern period, there is this prominence of the travel writing, if we think about the Deccan region or the region which we understand today as the Coromandel Coast. So a number of early modern travelers, explorers, and they were then followed by the colonial explorers as well as the documentarians. They have written extensively not about just the red dyes, but one singular red dye that was responsible for making possible the brilliance of this red, the vibrant red that we see in this Indian textiles. So that what it did was essentially that sort of stressed on the fact that apart from madder, even madder was considered to be slightly inferior to this one particular red dye stuff, that is the chaya root or Oldenlandia ambulata. And that was, according to these resources, they were found primarily in the Coromandel region, in the Deccan region, and so on. So this is something that we find in the colonial documentation that was sort of singularly made responsible for the brilliance, the vibrance of red natural dyeing in the southern Indian or the Deccani textiles that we find here. Now, we on the screen we have this one red banyan or a dressing robe of a man that comes from the collection of the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, and in this one we see this brilliant red glazed background, and then in the right side of the screen we have images of this the chaya roots, the ones that I'm talking about, that was singularly made kind of responsible for the brilliant red dyes, and this comes from the collection of the Botanical Survey of India office in Calcutta. Now, if we see the level that is there and that stays from the 19th century, we see that, these roots were found from Orissa, from West Bengal, and from southern India. It is not something that is just exclusive to southern India or to the Coromandel Coast, at least from the documentarian perspective. However, we find in the colonial documentation and all these other records, which the art historians and the textile historians have also sort of supported in the later times, that this chaya root was something that was found specifically in the southern Indian region in the Coromandel Coast, and no other dye stuff could actually yield red like chai roots. So basically the images that we see on screen, these roots and the red textile, they become synonymous of each other. Even though there is a lot about this, and Childhood almost gained this mythical status that this is this mythical dye stuff which can yield this kind of like, I mean, red dye, which the other dye stuff cannot really make. Even after all these things, when we see its practical impact, when the contemporary dye specialists and dye practitioners, for example, as Jagada Rajappa from Hyderabad, she's a dye specialist, and then the practitioners such as Vipin Das, who works with Kachchh Textile Studio in Chennai, all of them, they have used chai roots for their practice. They have always found that it never really yielded a satisfactory result. Even though the dye bath would turn blood red, but then it would never transfer to the fabric. So that made us wonder that whether this is only about the dye stuff that we are focusing on. Are there any other thing that is also involved in? So are there processes which are involved? Are there other features which are involved in this, which made this brilliant red dye possible and not just this singular dye stuff that we have been focusing on so far? So that also made us question about that the primacy of one dye stuff, the modernting techniques, and everything else. Now, this is where I think Wardle's documentation comes really useful, because what we find that what Thomas Wardle did in 1860s, he extensively documented the textiles in the Indian subcontinent. So today, when we say India, I'm definitely meaning the Indian subcontinent before 1947. So what he did was we find that he had shown that the region that we understand as Deccan or the Coromandel region, which I'm primarily sort of like, I mean, focusing on for this presentation. So even though like, I mean, all the colonial or the early modern accounts, they have focused on the use of chaya roots, but in his documentation, we find that there are multiple red dyes which were in use, and he had collected all these textile samples. So for example, he had specifically written or collected the swatches which are dyed in lac, in sapanwood or Brazil wood, then cochineal. The one we have on screen is dyed in cochineal. Then the butia flowers or the flame of the forest flowers or palash that is now in bloom as part of the Indian spring. And then of course that, I mean, madder is extensively used. So this is something we find, and all of this documentation we find that he had done in the Nizam's territory. So that means the Deccan and the Coromandel region. And it goes without saying that, I mean, of course, he had also done documentation in the other parts of the Indian subcontinent and had found similarly that, yes, red dyes was not really sourced from a singular dye stuff, but from many things. Now, he had also provided much details about the kind of fiber he was collecting and then the quality of dye stuff. And very curiously, he had also written, like, I mean, at least indicated about the modernting process. Now, for the modernting process, what he had also done, he wrote in quotes, a process, a capital A. Then somewhere he had quoted like exponential X process, or somewhere he had quoted EX process, that basically means X. So it seems when I studied one of these albums from the BSI archives in Kolkata, so it seemed that, I mean, he knew what he wanted to say, but he has abbreviated that the details of this modernting process and made them into these terms. But then in the albums, nowhere he had explained that what these terms actually stood for him. So perhaps like, I mean, exploration of his personal records and journals might reveal that, I mean, what they meant. But however, what we see there is this idea of the singularity of a dye stuff, of a potent dye stuff, was definitely refuted by the documentation that Wardle had done. Now, Wardle's study also comes as a significant part of some of the researches, some of the recent researches by Brenda King, by dye specialist Brenda King, and by art historian Antonia Bien. And we see that in their research, the relationship between leek of course, Thomas Wardle, India, all of these things have been sort of like, I mean, made into, has given this overarching theme about the cultural exchanges. And of course, I mean, we cannot really deny the colonial impact in the entire interaction between these places. But then what we also find that, I mean, Antonia Bien had also argued that how the documentation done by William Morris was something that was primarily meant for his setting up his own dyeing workshop and printing workshop in Leek. But then that also sort of contributed to sort of making Leek in the map of these global cultural exchanges, that we find that, I mean, how this kind of cultural exchanges did not really stay in the sphere of textile making, but it had also translated into architecture as well. So for example, in the All Saints Church in Leek, we find that there are designs which are named as Tanjore lotus in ports or Allahabad marigold. So this kind of things were made possible by the kind of interventions that Thomas Wardle had made. And then, of course, that, I mean, continuation of such kind of endeavors. Now, what we find that, I mean, when we talk about red dyes, we also see that, I mean, red had its own significance if we think about its persistence and existence in the Indian subcontinent. So red had always been associated with a celebration, with sacredness. Sacredness will probably be very more sort of like, I mean, related to certain religious practices, but then also celebration, certain kind of strong emotions and everything. And we do not really see that, I mean, when we talk about red, it is one kind of red. So there are several kinds of red, at least we find in the existence. So for example, we see warm and earthy brick red that resonates with the iron-rich soil of the Deccan and southern India. Then we also have red that is slightly dark yet warm as human blood. Then we also have red that embodies a hint of the pink hue of rose. And then we also have red that is almost at the verge of turning into purple. So we have all these varieties. And the thing is that, I mean, when we consider them, we cannot really think about just one singularly responsible dye stuff to be responsible for making this diversity of expression and the shades which are made possible in this. So on screen, we also have some of the textile samples which are found from the Botanical Survey of India's website. And then, of course, that, I mean, we can see that, I mean, the variety which we consider as like, I mean, kind of like different shades of red, but how the mood, how the kind of like, I mean, feelings they evoke are essentially very different. Now, when Thomas Wardle was documenting or collecting all these textile swatches, he was not doing it in isolation. We also find that, I mean, how the larger colonial project of archiving documentation, those were already underway. And we see that James Ford Watson's this magnanimous albums, the textile manufacturers of India, in which we find that there are textile swatches which were collected from different parts of the subcontinent. And here we have printed textiles and then like, I mean, of course, woven textiles and everything else. And where we find that how you know, this one textile that we have in the center of the screen, this is from Rajputana from the Western India. Then the another one that is towards the right side of the screen, that is from Punari, that is the northern tip of Sri Lanka today. So all these different places, the kind of red they produce, they are markedly different from each other. And perhaps one region would produce like multiple kinds of red. And it does not mean that it has to be connected to just one thing and not the other. So this kind of documentation, I'd say that, I mean, primarily by Wardle, and then also like relying on the documentation of Watson, and then, and of course, like, I mean, relying on the community practices, we may try to think that, I mean, there is more to be unearthed than just relying on one particular source or one particular line of thought. Now, the question is then, I mean, what does that do to our work and what is its significance today? So the impact of Wardle's research or the recognition or acknowledgement of like the plurality of red dyes, what it does is, I think, I mean, at least to when I started being involved with this issue about the plurality of red dyes, I was not just thinking about dye stuff as just something with its material, tangible existence, but I was also thinking about the plurality of historical narratives, that how one authoritarian narrative is produced, and we keep replicating that, believing that that is the only truth we have. Whereas when there is existence of multiple dye stuff, and we see that, there are clear evidences that, dye stuff were definitely produced from different sources. They were processed differently. So that also makes us think that, there are definitely more community histories involved with making these dyes, utilizing them, making them part of their livelihood, and not just one way of thinking about them. So with this in mind, what I started doing was I started sort of not only just going through the archival records, but also sort of start experimenting with the dye stuff. So I have already started experimenting with madder, sappanwood or Brazil wood, and then also all this particular dye stuff that is found in the Potpad region in Odisha. And thanks to Jagadharajappa for sourcing me all. And I think, what Wardle's documentation did to me, because when I have seen this albums in person, it also sort of like, it not just impacted me in terms of just the research, but it kind of also impacted my senses to be involved with the process of dyeing and dye making. So that, it sort of pushed me towards getting into the mode of experimentation and hands-on research, basically getting our hands dirty in this process and getting or embracing research as part of life and not just seeing it from a critical distance. So this is one of the recent experiments that I have done. And in this one, what I was trying to do was to do certain, using two different kinds of red dye in one fabric by the use of over dyeing. So I have been mordanting the same space again and again. And first I dyed this piece with madder, and then I used sappanwood or Brazil wood for dyeing the same places. So like repeatedly mordanting them. And by the way, I must just use this word of warning that, like, the use of overtying is highly debated among the dye specialists and practitioners. So that is something is there. But then what I also understood by this kind of practices, which is definitely underway, and I do not really have a conclusive answer for that. But with these things, one thing I could understand as a researcher or a practitioner, that multiple ways of perceiving history has opened up. It does not really produces one way of looking at the past, but there are many ways in which we can explore these things. And as I have mentioned that, I do not really have a conclusive answer for that, but it definitely, what it does is it definitely helps in undoing the myth of singularity through both research and practice. And it also helps in terms of reclaiming the plurality of red dyes. So with all these things in mind, what I'd like to end the discussion with is that, with all these things in mind, when we go back to a gallery or a museum and look into these textiles where brilliant red is there, I hope that we become more and more attentive to the subtle changes the red hues they have, and subtle kind of like shifts they might have on our mood. And then, like, of course, that how this kind of dye stuff, they interact with the fiber or the texture of the textile, and then overall the kind of feeling they evoke. So by doing that, we perhaps, I hope that, we embrace this textile, the historic textiles more, not only as part of our research life, but our life with all our senses. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajarshi. That was absolutely fascinating and a great introduction to our next. We actually have three panelists who are going to be now speaking in conversation with us. We have Professor Eiluned Edwards. The focus of Professor Edwards' research and teaching for 3 decades has been textiles, fashion, and craft in India, placing local histories in the global story. Her work investigates the development of technologies in specific locations and maps how technical knowledge has been transferred through trade, conquest, and colonization. These themes have been explored through a series of collaborative projects in India with artisans, academics, and craft NGOs, funded by the Leverhulme Trust, the British Academy, and others. The research has generated publications, exhibitions, and consultancies for the V&A, British Museum, Royal Ontario Museum, and British Council. And her current work is with the Srujan Trust Living and Learning Design Center in Kachchh, India. Her selected publications include Textile and Dress of Gujarat and Imprints of Culture, block printed textiles of India, that was given the R.L. Shelp Award by the Textile Society of America. She is currently working on a third monograph on Ajrak, a heritage textile made by Khatri block printers in Kachchh and Thar in India and Sindh, Pakistan. Eiluned will be in conversation with Abduljabbar Mohammad Khatri. A ninth generation member of his family, he lives and works in Dhamarka village in Kachchh, Gujarat. As a block printer and dyer, Abduljabbar is renowned for the textile production of Ajrak, a resist and mordant block print textile printed on both sides of the cloth with complex geometric and floral patterns that have been integral to the visual identity of cattle herders, expressing their faith and occupation. Transforming in the past decades into a fashion fabric popular in the urban markets of India and overseas. Abduljabbar has been conferred a National Craft Award from the Government of India, the UNESCO Seal of Excellence, the Innovation and Creativity in Craft Award from the Government of Oman, and Excellence in Handicrafts from the World Crafts Council. His textiles are held in museum collections, including the Royal Ontario Museum, the V&A in London, the Ashmolean in Oxford, and the Textile Museum in Washington, D.C. He has demonstrated his craft worldwide, notably at the V&A and in Oman. As a committed guardian of India's craft heritage, he has been active in the research of his craft, working with Professor Edwards on the Leverhulme Trust and on By Design, Sustaining Culture in Local Environments, Learning from Indian Handicrafts Sector, a British Academy project, and a book about Ajrak in collaboration with Eiluned. Adam Khatri is his son. He was born in 1986 and is the 10th generation of Ajrak block printers based in Dhamarka village, Kachchh, a diploma holder in textile design from the National Institute of Fashion Design in Bhuj. At the age of 5, he started learning his hereditary craft from his grandfather. Over the years, he's received many accolades, including the National Craft Award from the Government of India, and for his patented project titled Ajrak Kyodo. He is associated with design schools in India as a mentor to students on natural dyeing and block printing. Currently, he works with brands and designers across the globe to deliver the Ajrak of finesse while investing time in self-initiated projects related to natural dyeing and printing. Eiluned, over to you, to Jabbar Bhai, and to Adam.
Okay. Right, now I can share my screen. Okay. Oops. There we go. Okay, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, Eiluned, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Sorry, I'm a bit of a technophobe. Thank you very much for that glowing introduction, Ritu, and thank you very much to League of Artisans for the invitation extended to myself and to Jabbar and Adam. So let me start. Oops. Sorry, I'm going dense. Sorry, I'm just having a moment. Okie doke. All right. How do I make the screen go full? I don't know how to do that. I can't see that.
Don't worry about it. We can see very clearly.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry, it's just so I know how to move on. Wait a moment. Sorry, it's a migraine kicking in. It makes me stupid. Okay, so thank you very much, Ritu, and welcome to the Khatris, and welcome to Kachchh. Let me switch to the map so we know where you're talking about. So for those of you unfamiliar with India or with Gujarat, Kachchh is the most westerly district of Gujarat. It borders Pakistan to the north and also Rajasthan. So there's an affinity there. And I also want to introduce you to, Ritu did a lovely introduction, but I'm going to follow up on that. Introduce you to Jabbar's family. And introduce his father to the left of the screen, who was Mohammad Sadiq. So I've been fortunate to work with the family since 1991, when I first visited Kachchh on a sort of, I suppose, a textiles pilgrimage, really. And I met Mohammad Sadiq and Jabbar's brother Ishmael, so his middle brother, and we've collaborated on numerous projects in India since that time. So actually, in that first period in the 1990s, we did work with the Calico Museum, and more recently, we've done work with the Shrujan Trust. But we also did projects in the years that followed in the UK, but also Germany, Canada, and elsewhere. And we'll talk about those a little bit later. And as Ritu said, I'm currently writing a book about Ajrak and the Khatris throughout, actually, Gujarat and Rajasthan, but especially Jabbar and Adam have been very involved in this research. So just let me... So this gives you a sense of the generations involved in this craft, and this gives you a visual. So as Ritu's already explained, the Khatri signature textile is Ajrak, and I'm going to ask Jabbar and Adam to tell you about the production. The process involves a minimum of 14 different stages, and it takes at least two weeks. So that's a step by step. So over to you, Adam and Jabbar. Let me put your next screen up. Okay. Bolo.
Hello. Thank you, Elina Ben.
I wonder.
Yeah. So, yeah. So this one, our heritage and family work, and our grandparents came to Sindh and living in Dhamadka in 17th century, and that near area is a desert area. There people is much using lungi, turban, and shoulder cloth for wearing people. So this one is Ajrak is different of the other printing, because the Ajrak is two-side print. Only Ajrak is one block, is same design, is two-side printing, and regis printing and dyeing, because the first we use regis. First we are follow the process. So first is white cloth, then we remove the starch with camel dung, castor oil, and soda ash, and then their starch remove, and after first dyeing in myrobalan powder and dry in the sunlight, and the first printing lime in gum. Lime and gum is not color, but that one we print that that area is not coming other color. And second color we are printing for black. Black we making rusty iron, jaggery, and chickpea flour keeping 8-10 days, and that take the water and mixing tamarind seed powder and making paste, because the only water is some faded. So making paste and printing. And that one is a reaction of the myrobalan. Myrobalan dyed cloth and iron touch come black. Otherwise, white cloth we are printing iron, not coming black. And third, printing with alum, with clay and millet flour. And that one is mud resist, because the alum is watercolor. And we need that piece is dyeing in indigo. So that time is alum is gone. So we are protection giving to alum, clay, millet flour, and gum, and printing. And after printing, and that all piece is dyeing in indigo. Yeah, indigo, and dry in the sunlight. And after boiling and after washing, and that all is we are printing, that all is come out, and cloth is want, that one in catch inside. And then we are boiling with madder root, so alum is catch the color, and the alum they are coming red color.
Sorry, I'm showing a lot of blue here.
Yeah.
Just one more.
Yeah, that one in the screen, my nephew is yeah.
Kachchh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. That one is a green process, because the formal time my customer is I'm 9th generation. So that time is very only some color we do, indigo, red, black, green, yellow, and white base. So this process is making for pomegranate skin and turmeric spray before we are painting, but now is a new technique is making spray. Yeah.
Okay. Agate. Voila. There we go. So that's just a sort of summary slide, really, of some of the designs. And I wanted to point out the importance of tea. It's the fuel of block printing in Kachchh.
Yeah, because the craftsman is needed tea, and also some bidi, tobacco.
And just to illustrate Jabbar's customers, these are guys from the Jat community who have traditionally used Ashrak as part of their sartorial identity. And we've got the 11th generation coming through here. This is Arshad, who is Adam's firstborn son. And he's a good model for Ashrak. Okay, so I hope that little summary, sorry it's so rushed, has given you a basic idea of the process and the traditional local market. It must be said it's disappearing for Ashrak. And we're now going to outline a brief global history of Indian block printing and Ashrak and how it embodies cultural diversity. So this is our sort of history section. Just let me move on a slide. Okay, right, we disagree on this. We wanted to give you an idea of the antiquity of the craft. So I'm going to hand back to Jabbar and get him to talk about Indus civilization.
Yeah, that Ajrak is, I am 9th generation for this village. Before, our grandparents living in Sindh, and in Sindh civilization, that old their Mohenjo-daro. Inside you see the design. So this is a historical design, and we are thinking they are wearing ajrak, same design like this is Kachchh. We are calling Kachchh design. So this one very old technique for I think is about 4,000 years old.
So it was South Asia's first urban culture that developed in the Indus Valley. So the late stage was sort of 2,500 to about 1750 BCE. But I don't quite agree about the block printing thing, but I can see the continuance of pattern. We do know from the archaeological record that Indian cottons were being exported to the other riverine cultures of Egypt and Mesopotamia, but there are no surviving textiles, so the academic in me is very cautious to say if there were block prints at that time. But remarkably, fragments of block prints do survive from the medieval period. And the earliest have been carbon-14 dated to the late 8th century, which is remarkable when you think about the fragility of textiles. They're usually used to destruction. And there's also textual reference that consolidates that evidence. And these fragments were discovered in Fustat, which is sometimes known as Old Cairo in Egypt in the early 20th century. And they're now mostly in museum and private collections. For those of you in the UK, you can see them at the Ashmolean, which I believe has the largest collection anywhere in the world. And they've got, I think they've got 19 fragments at the V&A. The Ashmolean has done a remarkable thing. It's digitized the images of the Fustat fragments, so you can actually access them online as well. There are other collections, small collections in India. The Textile Museum in Washington has a few as well. So, you know, they are accessible, but not very readily. The best way to get at them is through the Ashmolean website. And the designs draw on architecture, so Islamic architecture and other, and I'm just doing some work on Fatimid architecture at the minute. Also florals and abstract florals. And the thing to note, and that's all sort of fed into Ajrak as well. All those design features, especially the florals, they're popular in local styles of embroidery in Sindh and Gujarat and Rajasthan. So there's a continuity of design there. If I just pull up a map for you, hold on. Sorry, I just like this image, but you can see the global reach here of Indian textiles. So let me just go on to the next slide. So, sorry, these are the Fustat textile fragments that I was referring to, and they do come into modern design as well. They've been reprised, particularly by the Khattris, but there's a lot of interest. So, in India's global reach was extraordinary. If I go back to the map, actually, so Kachchh and Gujarat is over here, west of India. So through the Indian Ocean trading networks, textiles from Western India reached Egypt through Red Sea. They also travelled to Southeast Asia. So they were going both arms of the Indian Ocean. And from the late 16th and early 17th century, these textiles were reaching Europe in exchange for spices in Southeast Asia through the activities of the East India companies. And there were numerous East India companies, but the dominant companies were the British or English East India Company and Vok, which was the Dutch company. And just picking up on Rajarshi's point about the plurality of red dyes. By coincidence, I was just reading some stuff that one of the company directors in London noted of the Gujarat cloths, and his comment was, "Your quilts come with sad red grounds, which are not equally sorted to please all buyers." And so the direction to the local factors, those agents working in Gujarat, so they had a big presence in Surat, was to make sure that the prints were produced on white grounds, because that was what the customers preferred and would, obviously affected sales. So there was design intelligence being circulated globally, and Indian printers were responsive to that. Just to pick up on the point of the reprise of the Fustat designs, on the right you've got a fragment which is held at the Ashmolean being reinterpreted on the left. I was in Damadka in November and December, and this was when I went into the workshop, this was what was being printed. So there's a contemporary quality to these designs as well. Okay, so moving swiftly on, we wanted to sort of touch on culture as well, and we're going to just give a quick summary of the exhibitions and museum projects that we've been involved in. So it's a selection, and we decided to choose those that have been a turning point in some way, or a new departure. So initially, it didn't involve Jabbar at that stage. I was in Kachchh in the mid-90s working on my PhD, and I actually wasn't working on Khatri's per se, but their products were important to the communities that I was working with. So I got very involved with Mohammad Sadiq, Jabbar's father. And I did some work for the Crafts Council, who initiated what was quite a groundbreaking exhibition at that time. I think it was 96, 97, which was handmade in India, which some of you may have seen even. And if you notice here, this was a canopy that I think Ismail Bhai no Kachchh. I think Ismail printed this. So this was again a reprise of the Fustat fragments, and then you've got classic Ajrak over here and a process set on the back wall of the exhibition. So even at that stage, there's this sort of delving into history, but that sort of introduced Ajrak to UK audiences. At the same time, I did some work I was research assistant at the Calico Museum of Textiles in Ahmedabad, and similarly we got an Ajrak process set and blocks added to the collection, so that there was that representation of the craft within that museum. I briefly want to mention the Gujarat earthquake, which was the 26th of January, Indian Republic Day in 2001, because it was a point of change for Khatris and for Kachchh. Not going to dwell on it, but just to say that it triggered another exhibition. So the Crafts Council of Bavaria had, I think they'd gotten in touch with Ismail about taking part in a trade show called Exemplar, which is held in Munich on an annual basis. And the idea was that Ismail was to go over and take, I think the theme was red, was to take some of the red dyed block prints over and do a small sort of show of Khatri work there. Obviously, because of the earthquake, which the epicenter was 17 kilometers from Damadka. So Damadka was very badly affected. The workshops were destroyed. There was a large loss of life, and the whole district, Kachchh, was in turmoil for many months after. So because I'd been handling some of the correspondence for Ismail and the family, Wolfgang Luscher, who was the director of the Crafts Council of Bavaria, asked if I'd go over and represent the Khatris. So I took textiles that I had. And as a result of that contact, very positive response to the textiles. And Wolfgang proposed that his gallery Handwerk in Munich, host an exhibition of Khatri work the next year. So for the following year, that was the focus of their work. And it was a selling exhibition, and it helped the Khatri, it sold very well. It helped the Khatris to get back on their feet. So it was an important exhibition for them. So jumping on from that, I'm going to hand over to Jabba now. I don't have images, I just haven't had time to locate them. But I wanted him to say something about his first trip to the UK when he came over and did a demonstration at the Victoria and Albert Museum. So Jabba, if you're still there, can you share with us your first experience of the UK?
Yeah, I'm in 2007. The exhibition organized by University of Warwick, and you hearing me?
Yes, you're coming through.
Yes. So that one is a global history of Indian textile, 15th and 16th century, and many book writers there, many, and we are demonstration for work, how is making for that cloth in UK. And then we start for that journey because the
lost them again.
Jabbar bhai, Adam, no sound. Jabbar bhai.
Hello.
डिस्कनेक्ट हो रहा है.
अब आ गया वापस. जबर भाई आ गए आप वापस.
हम तो आ गए, मगर ये 5-6 बार डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया था.
कोई बात नहीं, अब आप फिर से शुरू कर लो.
Okay, so we are my first journey to first go to Japan in 2006 for Namaste India 2006, and first time demonstration in the UK Victoria and Albert Museum. That program is organized by University of Warwick. The global history for Indian textile, the 15th and 16th century, because the many printing cloth.
Got again.
हेलो
अब्दुल भाई सुनाई दे रहा है, जबर भाई सुनाई दे रहा है,
मगर यहाँ पर आ रहा है और जा रहा है, क्या है समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. ऑटोमेटिक कनेक्ट हो रहा है, ऑटोमेटिक कट हो रहा है.
टेंशन मत लो, अभी आगे बोल लो.
हाँ, तो that one happened then because we are living in the village, we are not good speaking English, so much difficulty, and we have knowledge that we are share many people, and people is like, and many place invite people, and we my family is so for Ajrak work 2000.
Shall I jump in, Jababai? Okay. So
yeah, I think so, Eiluned.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to jump forward a bit to 2012, 2014. so I collaborated with Jabbar, amongst others, on the research for a book and exhibition about Indian block printing, which was supported by a Leverhulme Research Fellowship. And then immediately on the back of that, we did a British Academy International Partnership award scheme, and we did a project called Sustaining Culture in Local Environments. So I'm going to ask Jabbar if he's able to join us. Jabbar bhai?
Yeah.
Sanati. Can you share with us your experience of working on British Academy project? So we've got Abir filming your work.
Yeah.
So we had a team, including Ritu.
Progress.
Okay. Now, okay.
Yeah. Do you want to take over? Are you okay? Is your connection okay?
Yeah. So
recording in progress.
Yeah, that one is much helping to. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. So that one is very good experience for British Academy. Yeah, British Academy, and 3-year project. And first, I am take workshop in Nottingham Trent University, and lecture also there in Nottingham, and after in Delhi also. So that one is we are some.
So we have confidence.
We get
confidence.
little is coming confidence grow. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to leap in and take us on to the next stage, which was the Fabric of India exhibition, which I think probably some of you have seen. So Jabbar's work was represented in the Fabric of India. So it included ajrak, but also a process set, which was great because people could actually handle it. There was controversy attached to that exhibition because it included this jacket, which was designed by Rajesh Pratap Singh, and it used a digital print based on it's actually a fustat design, but it's a print produced by the Khattris. So there was controversy there. If there's time, it would be great to discuss that further in the Q&A session, but I just wanted to flag it. But ajrak was well represented in this exhibition, which obviously was very comprehensive, but it was a great thing for the Khattris to be involved in. And then I'm going to move on swiftly again. In 2016, 2017, I was contacted by the British Museum in London, and they asked me to do some consultancy on South Asian textiles with a view to selecting stuff to go in the new gallery that was being established in 2017, which was the Gallery of the Islamic World. So I worked with curator Famida Suleiman, who's now at the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto. And we went through boxes of stuff in the stores, the British Museum stores, and just looking, and I recognised a piece of ajrak in one of the boxes that was made by Mohammad Sadiq, Jabbar's father. And how I recognised it as ajrak, but there was a label attached to it. So I recognised the handwriting of a dealer in Bhuj called A.A. Wazir, who bought it from Mohammad Sadiq, and he sold it to the British textile dealer, John Gillow, who's based in Cambridge, who I also know. So there was this weird chain of connection in this textile, which Famida was rather gobsmacked by. And I said, well, Mohammad Sadiq's son, I've got him on speed dial. Do you want to talk to him? So long story short, Famida and Jabbar had a chat, and she commissioned him to print a new Ajrak masterpiece for the Gallery of the Islamic World. So if I just flick on, hold on, that's it. This was the work underway. And then I've got another slide to show you. And this over on the right-hand side of the screen, you can just about see the Ajrak in situ with the process set, and also a selection of the printing blocks that were used to make it. So it was a brilliant project to work on. And at the same time, I was asked to do consultancy by the Royal Ontario Museum on contemporary Indian block printing for a chintz exhibition they were planning for 2020-21. And it was to be a celebration of Royal Ontario Museum's 1970 landmark exhibition and publication, The Origins of Chintz, which was based on absolutely meticulous pioneering research by Catherine B. Brett at the Royal Ontario Museum and John Irwin at the V&A. So I carried out fieldwork in India in 2017 with Dr. Sarah Fee from the museum. So Sarah curated the exhibition, and it wasn't just on Ajrak, but it included quite a long time in Kachchh with the Khattris. And I can just move on to that one. Hold on. We filmed with Indranil Lahiri, who's a fantastic filmmaker. You can see Indranil over here on the left. I'm hoping to work with him again. So, and that exhibition, let me go on to the next slide. I'll go back to that one. That exhibition is currently touring the States. So it was on in Toronto in 2020-21, and obviously was affected by the COVID crisis. So a lot of the events that were planned couldn't happen because public spaces were not accessible. So it did affect the exhibition, but we did do some stuff online. I know Sarah organised a very ambitious programme. So let me go back to the filming and perhaps just ask Jabbar to talk a little bit about his masterpiece. So he was commissioned for one masterpiece for the Cloth That Changed the World exhibition, which Rajarshi was also involved in as well. But I think, how many did you do in the end? Was it about 13 or 14? How many masterpieces?
20.
20. Yeah.
Yeah, but that one is 14, yeah, 15th number.
All right, so that's not the one that went into the exhibition.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, it was, again, another really good project to work on. Really enjoyed it. And moving swiftly on, I'm sorry we don't have time to sort of linger on these. I want to move on to last year and early this year. So the Shrujan Trust in Kachchh, which is a long-standing NGO, it set up a museum a few years back called the Living and Learning Design Centre in Kachchh. And what the LLDC has done since its inception is curated a series of exhibitions that focus on local crafts and celebrate the heritage of artisan families. So in November, the work of the Khattris was featured in an exhibition which I think has just closed. So I'm going to pass over to Jabbar and Adam to talk about this exhibition because they were so heavily involved in it. So Jabbar,
yeah. So we showed here in LLDC our journey starting to in now present. So starting my grandfather, and then after many challenges come, and making new and new and new. So lot of new things. So the museum LLDC want to showing the journey of Mohammad Bhai. So that's why we gave the name of title Mohammad Bhai Je Umbre. It's like a doorstep. No, it's
Mohammad Bhai welcomes you. Mohammad Bhai welcomes you, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're hoping that exhibition will go to Neela House in Jaipur.
Yeah.
That's the ambition
But
for
that exhibition is, I think, is because the people don't know how can start my father natural dye revive to 70, between 70 to 75, uh, 1970 to 75. And that one is going, uh, because the uh, in Dhamadka, full chemical color is coming. People is dying full chemical process. But my father is no, and he thought I teach my children, and he have information for natural dye. His future is good, and then they Ismail Bhai and Razak Bhai is much interested inside, and the people that time is Gurjari, Mr. Basin and other people is came here Dhamadka, visited. That time they are seen that natural dye and helping you, Muhammad Bhai, you make this one because this one is good for health and also skin, and that one our traditional. So there start natural dye again in 70 to 75. Now today is I think it 90% people is in Dhamadka and Ajrakpur is using natural dyes.
yeah. Okay, I'm afraid we have to move swiftly on, Jabbabai. Wanted to finish with the business today. So we've just having mentioned ancient trade in textiles earlier, we're just going to finish with a quick look at the modern business and mention some key clients. So Adam and Jabba are going to talk about Gamtiwala, Liwa handprints, and Good Earth. So perhaps start with Gamtiwala, Ahmed Bhai.
Yeah, Gamtiwala family is cloth merchant in Ahmedabad, and they are specialized selling for block printing, yardage, and natural color, want to natural color. And also Ahmed Bhai is my good friend and very good knowledgeable man. He is thinking new color development, new design also. So that one is helping to we are stay in the market.
Okay. And if I move you swiftly on to Mewa handprints, who I think is your largest customer.
Yeah, Maiwa is our biggest customer, and he in the Vancouver, Canada, and their company owner is Charlotte Kwan, and she is starting that Maiwa handprint in 1986, and we are starting with Maiwa working in 1997, but she has much helping to more coming natural because the now today is using people is many toxic modern like dichromate and copper sulfate and iron sulfate. So that one in Maiwa production is not allowed. because they want to only natural. So we are using and many more color developing new color. Yeah.
All right, I'm rushing you on. Also, I thought Adam might want to handle this one. Good Earth.
Yeah. So Good Earth in Delhi. So earlier Good Earth is just working with my uncle with Junaid. So they want to work with us also. So they started work with us and they give us other designers and designs, and we make a collection, Sindhu collection, and inside contemporary and Japanese like design, but the process is Ajrak. Yeah, very good
Yeah,
process.
their Good Earth is making one story and then making cloth. Yeah, and design and color choose is very good.
All right, so I'm afraid we have to conclude. So thank you for your attention to our whistle-stop tour of India-UK global collaborations. We hope that you appreciate this historic craft and how it's diversified over time, but how it references itself. And I just wanted to finish with a slide to show you how it's diversifying. So Adam has invented an Ajrak game, Ajrak Koido, and assisted by his firstborn son, Arshad, he's now starting to market that. So I think it just shows the diversity of applications for Ajrak and block prints. So thank you very much. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jabbar Bhai. Thank you, Adam. And thank you, Eiluned. We could
Thank
have
you.
spent
Thank you,
listening
Ritu
to
जी. टाइम बहुत ले लिया, माफी चाहते हैं.
बिल्कुल नहीं जबर भाई, सब और भी सुनना चाहते हैं, पर अगली बारी पूरा दिन करेंगे आपका. What I just said to Jabbar Bhai and to Adam is next time perhaps a whole day devoted to them. So a very big thank you. Our last panelist today is Meeta Mastani. Meeta works at the intersection of sustainable development, culture, craft, design, arts, and retail. In 1993, she co-founded Bindas Unlimited, a social enterprise where she continues to make contemporary textile block prints in natural colors with rural artisans from across India, Rajasthan, Gujarat to Uttar Pradesh. Her collaborations have been based on sustained ethical and collective principles. She has also co-founded both online and offline stores in India. As an artist and maker herself, she has collaborated with artists in different parts of the world. Her artwork has been shown at the V&A in London, the Dutch Costume Museum in Amsterdam, the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, and the Madison Children's Museum in Wisconsin, amongst others. She has also been an artist in residence at institutions in Maine, Wisconsin, and the Czech Republic. Besides this, she also teaches workshops on natural dyeing and hand printing of fabrics. Over to you, Meeta.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Ritu. Thank you to League of Artisans. And thank you so much. I mean, it was really lovely hearing both the presentations that came before me. Am I audible? Is it all okay and clear? Okay.
Absolutely. Perfect.
So I am just going to share my screen. Here we go. Okay, I have the same problem. I'm not able to.
Meeta, you're fine. Don't worry. It's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Okay. So let me start. So I came to block printing via my work with rural artisanal communities in the late 80s. I worked on contemporary block prints in natural colors and mud resist with Studio Chaubundi, a fourth generation printing family in Rajasthan, for about 30 years, and also with a printer called Bhura Bhai in Kachchh. My brand is called Bindas Unlimited, and I started this social enterprise with my ex-partner in the early 90s. And for the last 15 years, I've been doing it on my own, but not really on my own because I work with so many people. I started working with rural artisans right out of college when I joined Dastakar, which is a not-for-profit based in Delhi. Working with people in rural India gives me access to a culture that privileges relationships and is rich and playful, and I really enjoy that. My journey with block prints started when the first time that I worked on block prints, I worked with friends to create a range of t-shirts for a British alternative trading organization called Shared Earth in the early 90s. We made a small range of simple block printed natural dyed t-shirts. We knew so little, we made so many mistakes, and we learned so much. Shared Earth went through some financial problems after that, no thanks to us. And they kind of shut shop for a bit after that. Hearing about our experiment, Oxfam Bridge approached us to produce a range of t-shirts for them to sell to Indians, to raise funds for a then thriving social sector in a rapidly liberalizing India. Bindas collaborated with a design studio called People Tree, based in Delhi, printing family, the Dosayas in Bagru, and Mohammad Ayub, who was a skilled block maker, to create a range of t-shirts for which we made a whole new range of blocks, of course. Many of these designs were of nature in India and of Indian objects that were already starting to vanish. Oxfam Bridge exited India soon after, but we loved the work and the relationships and the whole technique and just the beautiful skills that are available in India. And we decided to continue to take it forward with the Chaubundi family. Had it not been for Oxfam, who brought together and triggered a collaboration between traditional printers with their generational knowledge, social activists, designers, and retailers, I might not be here this evening. I now print on all kinds of natural fabrics and t-shirts. Starting out on t-shirts set the bar for an informality in design, which was forgiving of lapses that would not be the norm in, say, a woven shirt or a dress. Natural dyes require a print that is a fairly standard repeat set close to each other. Otherwise, the dye can look patchy. With t-shirts, we could afford to place the blocks for the prints, actually, not the blocks, the prints at further distances, having the dye look a little patchy and not just get away with it, but celebrate it and make it part of the design. This informality has worked its way into my work with textiles, into my work with fabrics. And I now have a range of hundreds of block designs, which allow me to create endless stories in the textile art and the garments that I create. Traditional Indian block prints, like most other traditional textiles, encoded community identity and worked as social markers. If you knew a little, you would know which community the wearer of a particular print came from. If you knew a little more, you would know where the print was printed. Each village had a limited bank of designs that they'd print, and there was an informal copyright system where they didn't print the designs of other villages. In this way, it was possible to know almost right down to the printer who had printed a particular length of fabric, almost like the blockchain technology of today, but without the tech in it. I mean, the tech was people, the people were the technology, right? So these prints, these traditional patterns were often inspired by nature and represented what people who were printing them saw around them at the time. Similarly, I consciously create contemporary designs which reflect objects and flora and fauna that I see around me in my everyday life in different parts of the country, even the world, but the country as well. When we started doing this work in 1993, the design language available in India was mostly traditional prints or rejects and surpluses of Hello Kitty and Mickey Mouse and other prints that were exported. there was not so much that was designed for sale in India. Bindas has been a pioneer in creating prints that reflect Indian everyday life with a strong, confident aesthetic. For a colonized country which has produced printed fabrics for the world for thousands of years, it is very important to depict our own designs and our own reality rather than just designs which have significance for a commissioning country. My designs incorporate and celebrate the technique used in village Kala Dera in Rajasthan. The technique of printing in this village is anything but refined. The printers here, I mean, unlike the beautiful Ajrak printing that we were seeing, the printing here is mostly limited to 2 color blocks with an outline and a filler. And sometimes the filler doesn't even exactly match the outline because the dabu used here is fairly thick and blobby, the mud resist or dabu. To create a well-defined look with these comparatively limited skills was a challenge. And together with the printers, we have created a design sensibility that is instantly recognizable and marketable, thus providing a consistent and sustainable livelihood to all the printers and dyers that work with us. I'm going to start with some slides and show you. This is a t-shirt, the first slide. This t-shirt is called Tiger Hide. It showed as part of the same show, The Fabric of India, at the VNA, and was done in collaboration with People Tree, which is a design studio in New Delhi that I worked with for the initial part when I started. It's printed with just 2 blocks, the tiger and the lions. And like I said, block printing is a good printer can print in such a way that you don't know where one block ended and the next one starts. And it's about creating a pattern which you repeat over the whole length of the fabric. An exporter came and bought this t-shirt from People Tree and wanted to duplicate it and came to another family in the same village to try and duplicate it. And they went completely crazy because they were trying to make each piece look the same. We must have printed it. This was printed in the 90s, the first time probably. And we must have printed many, many versions of this, many, many iterations. And each piece, not just each iteration, but each piece will be just a little bit different from the last piece, because it's done in a very simple way by masking portions of the tiger with just a piece of paper between the block and the textile itself. So of course they did end up copying it, but they had to screen print it. They couldn't block print it. It just wasn't possible if you wanted looking the same. So that's one of the strengths that really excites me about block printing, that it doesn't need to be the same and cookie cutter. Each piece can look just that little bit different, and it's very, very okay. This is Rajni ji, and she's printing in mud resist, the dabu that I was speaking of, which is the specialty of this area. Once it's washed, that's what the print looks like, the elephant bum. This is another block which was I created maybe 3 years back. And this is the different tying styles of saris in India. We all know that there are many, many tying styles in India, probably as many as the people wearing saris. I mean, it really is a length of fabric which you can do anything with. But these are kind of recorded formal tying styles of saris in different parts of the country. This is another new print, which is these indie dogs. There are so many street dogs in India, and it's always a battle between people who have bred dogs and dogs of, I mean, the street dogs are, of course, also come from breeds, and they have crossbred traditional Indian breeds. This is here's another example of how you can break a pattern, how it's possible to break a pattern on an informal looking garment with 2 blocks. The block, actually, this chappal, the flip-flop block, is just these two. And I use it in different ways in different pieces. In some pieces, it goes all over. It can also be like this, telling story about rain in a really sandy part of Rajasthan where we work. These are crows. Again, it's also about the combinations. You can use the same blocks endlessly over and over again to tell all kinds of stories in combination with another block. This is a very popular print, which was done again in the 90s. We did in the 90s. It's called Sikka, old Indian coins, and has been copied prolifically. I mean, I think more people have printed it from outside our studio than we have. And as you know, it's not easy to establish and to maintain your copyright here. But anyways, very happy to print it. This is crow drinking nectar out of an anar flower. So the field that we work in Kaladera it's dry, it's sandy. We use a lot of water, and we've done water recharge wells for the community and also for the family, for the Chobundi family as well. And after that, post that, there has been a lot more green in the fields. So there's so many more birds which are coming to the plants, and it's beautiful to see. This block was designed by Sutunu Panigrahi, who is one really good block designer who we've worked with over the years. This is one of our t-shirts again, all about, since we have resistance, this is about resistance as well. This is a sari. I work on all kinds of garments, fabrics, from which we make all kinds of different silhouettes, and also saris, which are beautiful to work on because they're actually like a painting. You have very well-defined portions which you can play with, and it really works beautifully in conjunction with each other. The print in the block says "Bol ki lab azad hai tere." That's the same block. And it is a poem by Faiz Ahmed Faiz, who's a South Asian poet. I would like to read you the English translation of it. Yeah, it says, I'll just read it in Hindustani first. Bol ki lab azad hai tere, bol zuban ab tak teri hai. Speak while your lips are still free. Speak while your tongue is still yours. Speak, for your strong body is your own. Speak while your soul is still yours. That's just the first stanza. It's a really beautiful poem. And it is such a luxury and a privilege to be able to express yourself, express myself and people who I work with in the form of print. And you can put it out. It's like a little painting which is walking around in so many parts of the world. So this is another such poem written by Kishwar Nahid, who's from Pakistan. And it says, "Ye hum gunehgar औरतें हैं, जो अहले जुब्बा की तमखनत से ना रुआब खाएं." It is we sinful women who are not awed by the grandeur of those who wear gowns, who don't sell our lives, who don't bow our heads, who don't fold our hands together. It is we sinful women, while those who sell the harvests of our bodies become exalted, become distinguished, become the just princes of the material world. this is the only screen that in all that I've shown, this is a screen print and not a block, but most of what I do is block printing. This was just for the fineness, the only way it could be done for us is through a screen. I think maybe in Kachchh it is printed. We can print this fine work, but not in this part of the Rajasthan. This is part of a show at the National Museum in New Delhi. And as you can see, we worked on cricket, which is our national craze. And this is inspired by Leonard Cohen's Bird on a Wire. This is part of a show in Amsterdam. This is my version of a neem tree, and the show was on climate change. There were two of us. It's a collaborator that I work with, Marlies, and me. And this is the family that I work with, Chaubundi. They are not here today, but they are here in this way. And like Eiluned, I've been working with them for 30 years, and they are family to me too. So it really has been lovely to have a connection with people with such tremendous skills and with a completely different cultural mindset, which I've learned so much from. So happy to take any questions.
You know, I want to just say such a huge thank you to all of you, that I know I could go on forever, but believe it or not, TikTok, we are actually over time by 5 minutes. So while we have noted all the questions, we will attempt to answer everybody individually in some manner. And before I say my thank yous to all of you remarkable, outstanding panelists, I want to say that do keep in touch. Look at our League of Artisans website, our Instagram page, because on the 18th of April, we launch our Artisan Manifesto. And we would love it if you could all look at it, contribute to it, and be part of it. So I now want to formally say thank you to Rajarshi, to Jabbar Bhai, to Adam, to Eiluned, to you, Meeta. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being so marvelous. And I know how late it is at night in India, so thank you for keeping awake too. I want to thank all the attendees for being so attentive and actually staying on this long, given how late it is. And I thank our sponsors for their support, the National Lottery through Arts Council England, Outside Art, and of course, Neela House, Lady Bamford Foundation. And a very big thanks to my colleagues and my co-directors and our artisan advisors. And with this, I'm sorry, we've been unable to take questions, but we've learned so much that thank you all. Thank you. So I will now say bye-bye. And please do fill in the form that we have posted on our online poll, and a very big thanks to you for that.